Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry about the delay.
No problem.
My computer's acting up, so until then, we will just use this. Are you able to see me and hear me clearly?
Yep, coming in loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So I apologize, I don't have the screen share, but we'll see if this will start. When it starts in the computer, we'll figure things out from there.
Mm.
Okay. So where were we holding? We were in the middle of a conversation.
While you're doing that, I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, I was looking at menorahs, and I noticed a lot of menorahs are for Hanukkah. They have 7 stems instead of 9. What's the 7-stem menorah all about?
This is a very good question. Give me just a second because it looks like my computer turned on. So I'm going to do reclaim host. I'm going to admit this. Then, okay, I'm going to be back on the computer in just a second.
Mm.
Okay, Zaman, are you able to hear me?
Yeah,
Perfect. And good morning, Joan and Susie.
Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning, Rabbi. How are you?
Good, thank God. Thank you for asking.
Good.
So Zaman was asking, he was seeing, where were you, first the question is, where were you seeing the menorahs with 7 stems instead of 9?
well, I went to one of the Judaica stores, and then I was looking online. I was thinking of buying a new menorah.
Okay,
Just looking at
yeah,
Amazon and
so,
eBay.
right. So the menorah in the temple had 7 branches.
Right. The weekly one.
The menorah in the temple had 7 branches. Does anybody know why our menorah has 9 branches if the menorah in the temple had 7?
Wouldn't the menorah in the temple just be the weekly one?
Well,
Because I've seen that. I just figured that's a weekly menorah.
we have 9 because of the 8 days of Hanukkah and the Shabbos.
Right.
Right. So the reason why our menorah has 9 candles is because we have the miracle lasted for 8 days, and we have the Shamash. Now I'm going to challenge you guys for a moment, actually. When they found that little cruse of oil, how much oil did it have in it? Enough for how many days?
1 day.
1 day. And it burns for how many days?
8 days. Mm-hmm.
8 days. So how many days was the miracle?
7.
Yeah. Oh.
There were 7 days of miracles. So why do we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
So there's actually a book with 101 reasons why we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days. There are many different opinions as to what was the first. Sorry?
And that's just 5 rabbis.
Imagine if the whole yeshiva was there. As to why we celebrate for the first day, some of the beautiful answers are, number one, that they bothered trying instead of just giving up and saying, hey, we can't find anything, let's just move on. Another one is the fact that they had the sensitivity after all those years of fighting They had the sensitivity to look and to be involved and engaged in spirituality. Another beautiful one is they just came back from war, right? They haven't taken a haircut, they haven't changed their clothes, they haven't taken a shower. And instead of going home after capturing the temple, they wanted to come and get the temple back into service. Those are some of the reasons. So that's why we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days, plus the Shamas, so we have 9 candles. The menorah in the temple had 7 candles, 7 branches, and it was lit every evening, and it would burn, all day. So if it was a 7-branch menorah, it was probably trying to be a replica of the one in the temple. Does anybody know what shape was the menorah in the temple?
Well, I know that Chabad and Hasids use that a straight, right? Instead of being
Straight on an
rounded
angle.
like this, it's like straight like that.
Okay, so
Like the one,
yes,
like that one big one on University.
yes. So the answer is that it depends. There are different opinions. There are some who say, look, Titus on his gate of victory has a depiction of a menorah, and over there the menorah is round. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was very emphatic that cannot be the case, because if we look at the writings of Maimonides, his son includes a picture which is attributed to having been drawn by Maimonides of a straight-angled menorah with all of its details. And the Rebbe was very, very strong in his opinion about how important it is to make sure that all depictions of templitic menorahs have straight arms. And I personally, you still able to hear me? I personally believe that the reason why the Rebbe was so strong about it is because the menorah has become somewhat of a symbol of Judaism. And the question is, where do you get your inspiration for Judaism? Do you get it from Jewish sources, or do you get it from those who destroyed Jerusalem and captured Israel? So,
I mean, Rabbi, could you go
those who
back?
have a round menorah are taking their pride of Judaism from those who raped, plundered, pillaged, murdered our people.
Where did you say the round one appeared?
On the Arch of Titus in Rome.
The Arch of what?
Titus. Titus, the Roman general who destroyed the temple and took back many of the artifacts to Rome.
Well, that could be considered an original source, though.
It could be considered an original source, but there also were other candelabras that were in the temple, and not necessarily was this the one that was in the holy chamber and lit every day. So I understand the reasoning why people want to use that as a source. And the Rebbe has a long talk debunking that and explaining why that's not the actual that the Jewish tradition is that the menorah was straight angled branches. Anywho,
Why?
sorry.
That's straight, Susie. Yeah. That's curved. Right. Straight is the one we need. Oh. All right, Rabbi. I'm not going to get it.
Okay, so we're going to go to trying to remember where we were holding.
One more question. Is the 7-branch one ever used for anything anymore?
Today we don't use a 7-branch candelabra, correct?
For everything. Because, I mean, there's certainly a lot of them for sale.
Unless what?
I said there's a lot of them for sale. Some, I mean, so I was wondering.
There's a lot of useless things for sale.
Yeah, but in temples, they will have the menorah,
From
you know,
7
to 7, yeah. I know in
But
our,
that's traditional.
yeah, but
That's
our
what-
temple, they have.
Well, our temple is a Presbyterian church.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
when did Hanukkah become a holiday for people that they celebrate it every year, like we do? Do you know when it became a holiday?
That's a good question. I believe that it was the day the I believe that it was the year after the story. If I'm not,
After the war?
you know what? Let's look this up in the let's look this up in the original. Let's see if we can find it. Maybe we'll learn that today instead of the usual. If it'll load, give me a minute. I believe that it was the next year that they began celebrating.
That would make sense.
So they had-
Talmud. Sorry?
So they had people, craftsmen that were able to make menorahs, and what did they make them out of in those days when you think? And could
That's a
people
good
afford?
question.
Could people afford them too? Who knows?
Well-
You can't answer that because nobody really knows that.
What do you mean nobody knows that?
Nobody knows what.
Well, that people just every average day people could afford a menorah in those days. I don't know what it was made out of. You know, what did they have?
Oh, yeah.
What
They definitely had stuff that they were using
Mhm.
to build and to plant and to plow.
No, I know that, but wouldn't you have to be able to bake it if you were making it out of clay or something like that?
Yeah, they had ovens, they had pottery, they had
Yeah, they outdoor ovens, is that what they had?
Yeah.
And they had
so.
they had artisans to make beautiful jewelry.
Mhm.
Look at King Tut and all the stuff that all the beautiful things that they made 5,000 years ago out of brass and
That's
gold.
But these
Was that-
people were roaming around, the Israelites. They were in
Yeah,
the
but this is
desert.
at the temple.
Well, the ones in the temple were probably made out of gold, and the common people probably had them made out of wood.
I was
Oh,
thinking
oh,
wood.
really? Oh, well, that's
And then I said,
interesting.
then they need a new one every day.
Well, I wonder what kind of trees they had in the desert.
Okay, let's read this from the source over here. This is Tractate Shabbat, and this is going to be page 21b. And the sages taught in a brisa. So we're in the middle of a discussion about what you are allowed to, which candles you are allowed to use on Shabbos and which candles you're not allowed to use on Shabbos for Friday night. And I do want to also add to that discussion from before, that there were great civilizations, like and Zaman, I'm sure you would know this. Almost anything that we know today, almost anything, perhaps besides for certain sciences, but the groundwork for everything that we know today in astronomy, astrology, any of the sciences, all comes from the great men of Mesopotamia who lived thousands of years ago.
When the Library of Alexandria was burned. Have you heard of the Library of Alexandria, Rabbi?
It rings a bell.
It was
Yeah.
it was a library that had all the ancient texts from all the civilizations all gathered in one place. It was the center of all learning throughout the Western world, and it burned to the ground. And it probably set civilization back 500 years. Probably would have gone to the moon 500 years ago. The library hadn't
Not
burned
for that
down.
fire.
Yeah.
Wow.
What caused
So,
that
so
fire?
you had those two civilizations, right? You had Mesopotamia, and you had Egypt. That were the two, big schools of thought. But
And
to
the
think
Greeks.
that back then, right? Well, this is before the Greeks, right? We're talking still in Abraham's times.
Oh, yeah. But I'm talking about the
So-
Library of Alexandria. Which also had all the rest party with the Greeks.
Sorry.
But the Library of Alexandria also had all the Greeks knowledge.
Right.
And
So this
they,
would have been much later already. But I'm saying
Yeah.
even back then is when you have these discussions of how big the sun is and how big the moon is. For them to have been having such discussions, they must have had vast knowledge and various tools, and they were brilliant people.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, when it says King Solomon, right, that he's the wisest of all men, the verse praises him as having been even smarter than all of the wise men of the East, referring to Mesopotamia. So civilization wasn't all cavemen and Neanderthals. There were incredible people who were incredibly civilized.
Well, the ancient Egyptians knew about pi.
Yeah, I knew about pi since I was a little boy.
Apple or cherry?
Okay, yeah. So the sages taught in a brayso, the basic mitzvah of Hanukkah is each day to have a light kindled by a person, the head of the household, for himself and his household. So that's the mitzvah of Hanukkah, is every night of Hanukkah to light a candle. And the Mahadrin, which means those who are meticulous in the performance of mitzvahs, light one candle for each member of the household. And the Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin, which are the more meticulous people, adjust the number of lights daily. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel disagree as to how the adjustment goes. Beis Shammai says, on the first day you kindle 8 lights, and then from then on you gradually decrease the amount of lights, and on the last day they light 1 candle. And Beis Hillel says on the first day you candle 1 light, and from there on you gradually increase the number of lights until the last day where he kindles 8 lights. And this is something phenomenal, which we see, that even people who do not seem to be very meticulous at all in observance of the mitzvahs, when it comes to Hanukkah, everyone acts as the most meticulous of the meticulous, and we see that everyone lights 1 candle, and then the second night 2 candles, and the third night 3 candles. But let's pause here, see if anyone can figure out. Does anyone want to give some guesses as to what's the reason for the argument between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, whether you start with 8 candles and work your way down to 1, or start with 1 candle and work your way up to 8?
I don't understand the 8 down to 1.
And we do 1. I've done 1 my whole life.
We know that, but I can't understand.
Well, yes, you're right. The final law is, the halacha is, that we start with 1 and go up to 8. But what's the reasoning for the opinion that you would start with 8 and go down to 1?
I don't understand that.
Because of what happened with the temple?
I
can tell you.
nothing comes to mind.
I've never heard that in all my life. And I'm an old goat here. I've never heard where they light 8 first.
Hmm.
The
Doesn't make any
custom is,
sense
the custom, sorry?
Doesn't make any sense to me.
No?
Maybe
Okay, so I'll tell you. The
maybe
reasoning
there's
for that
time.
opinion is because Shammai and Hillel in general, and you'll see this in all of their arguments, that Hillel goes on based on what you have, and Shammai goes based on what the potential here is. So because Shammai is always looking at the potential, so he's looking at how much miracle do we have. On the first night, the miracle was 8 days worth of miracle. On the 7th day, the miracle is weaker. There's only 7 days left of the miracle. On the 3rd day, there's only 6 days left of miraculous energy. So the energy of the miracle is slowly waning. Whereas Hillel says, let's look at what you actually have. On the first day, you have 1 day worth of miracle. We only had miracle of 1 day. On the second day, we had 2 days of miracle. And on the third day, we had 3 days of miracle, etc.
Right.
Anyway, that's a side note. Continuing on. Okay, you know what? Okay, let's skip this because this is a discussion about that. Okay, so now after discussing how many candles you're supposed to light and where you're supposed to light them, maybe we'll get back to that if we have time at the end. The Gemara asks, what is Hanukkah? And why are lights kindled on Hanukkah? So the Gemara answers that the sages taught in Megillat Tainus. On the 25th of Kislev, the days of Hanukkah are 8. One may not eulogize on them and one may not fast on them. What is the reason? When the Greeks entered the sanctuary, they defiled all the oils that were in the sanctuary by touching them, popping the seal. When the Hasmonean monarchy, that's the Maccabees, overcame them and emerged victorious over them. By the way, this was not the end of the war. The end of the war lasted, I think, another 3 or 8 years after the Hanukkah story. But this was when they conquered Jerusalem. Yeah. They searched and found only 1 cruse of oil that was placed with the seal of the high priest, undisturbed by the Greeks. And there was sufficient oil there to light the candelabrum for only 1 day. A miracle occurred, and they lit the candelabrum from it for 8 days. The next year, the sages instituted those days and made them holidays where we recite the Hallel and special thanksgiving in prayer and blessings. So, does that answer your question, Susie?
Yes. I was just wondering when it became a holiday. You know, as long as I've been living, it's been one. So, thank you.
It became a holiday, yeah. It became a holiday the year after the story of Hanukkah.
Very interesting. So it's been going on for thousands of years now.
It has been going on for thousands of years, and then you have an interesting discussion about what happens if you have your menorah outside, right? You're supposed to have your menorah outside of your house. So what happens if the camel is walking by with a load of flax, and the flax gets lit on fire by the Hanukkah menorah? So who is liable for who has to pay for the fire? Is it the owner of the menorah or the owner of the flax? Yes, we're going to get to all of this in deeper detail in the next tractate that we're going to learn, which is the tractate of Shabbat. Okay. So now that we've discussed and finished our discussion, or at least for now, about whether you're allowed to have tefillin in your bed, the Gemara resumes its discussion, and we got into off on a tangent about that, about saying Shema if there are other people around you who are unclothed. Rabbi Hanina said, I saw Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi hang his tefillin. The Gemara raises an objection. How could you say that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi would hang his tefillin? If we learned in a brayso that one who hangs his tefillin will have his life hung in the balance. Moreover, the symbolic interpreters of the Torah said that the verse, and your life shall hang in doubt before you, that is the punishment for one who hangs his tefillin.
When you say hang his tefillin, you mean just like put it on a hook and hang it
we're about to find out. We're about to find out. The Gemara replies, the apparent contradiction is not difficult. This brayso, which condemns one who hangs his tefillin, refers to one who's hanging them by the strap, allowing the leather boxes which the holy parchment is placed in to dangle in an unbecoming way, which is certainly prohibited. And the other brayso, which relates to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi would hang his tefillin, and that it is clearly permitted, refers to that is hanging them from the box. He put the box on a shelf or the box on a hook, and the straps were dangling down. Does that answer your questions, Amin?
Yes.
Beautiful. And if you wish, you could say another explanation instead. There's no difference whether he hangs the tefillin from the strap or whether, and there's no difference whether he hangs them from the box. Both are prohibited. And when Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi hung his tefillin, he hung them inside his pouch. And the Gemara asks, if so, if he was hanging his tefillin in their pouch, then it's obvious that that's allowed. What is the purpose to relate that incident? Why would the Brisa even tell us the story? The Gemara replies, lest you say that tefillin would require placement atop a surface, as is the custom with the Torah scroll. A Torah scroll has to be on a shelf or other such surface, a table. Therefore, it teaches us that this is unnecessary. You cannot hang a Sefer Torah even if it's in a pouch, even if it's in a box, but tefillin you are allowed to. Now here comes a very interesting story. We're going to go off on a tangent again. Since Rabbi Hanina related a story involving Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the Gemara recites another such a story. So we have to also understand the genius of Ravina and Ramashi, who compiled the Talmud. These conversations, some of these conversations spanned hundreds of years, with a back and forth discussion regarding people who passed away before the new ones were born. So we have a story about Rabbi Hanina saying a story about Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. And since we said that, we're going to say another story about Rabbi Hanina and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, which may have happened years later in a discussion, and they may have found this note completely separate. It wasn't necessarily all compiled for them, and they cut and pasted it to fit it all together so nicely. Since Rabbi Hanina related a story involving Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the Gemara recites another such a story. Rabbi Hanina said that I saw Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and while he was praying, I saw that he belched, he yawned, he sneezed, and he spat. Why is that important?
I don't know.
Well, it sounds like it's irreverent.
Irreverent.
So the first thing it teaches us is that Mexican food was around thousands of years ago. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Yes, it does sound irreverent, and the Torah is telling us, or Rabbi Hanina is telling us, what things are permitted while praying. In other words, I don't want to use the word necessarily permitted, but we'll explain. So,
Yeah, okay.
wait,
I
what
sometimes-
does that mean?
I sometimes yawn in the middle
Right.
of
In the
and
middle
then
of prayer?
I start over again. I just feel terrible and I start over again.
Okay, so this is very practical, very good. If you yawn in the middle of your prayers, do you have to start over again? Or can you continue from where you left off?
It comes on, dude. You gotta sneeze. You gotta sneeze.
What did he say?
Okay,
Goes.
we're going to see soon about sneezing. Very interesting. Okay, now if he was stung by a louse, he would feel for it, and he would remove it with his garment. In other words, he wouldn't touch the louse with his fingers, but he would remove it with his garment. But if his prayer shawl, if his talus fell off in the middle of prayer, he would not put it back on. And when he would yawn, he would place his hand over his chin so that his open mouth would not be visible. Okay. The Gemara raises an objection to this action of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi based on a Brisa. And the Brisa goes as follows. One who sounds his voice during his Amida prayer, during the standing prayer, the Shmona Esrei as we call it today, is among those of little faith, as he seems to believe that the Lord cannot hear his prayer if he utters it silently, and that's why he's screaming. One who raises his voice during prayer is considered to be among the false prophets, as they too were wont to cry out and shout to their gods. Furthermore, one who belches and yawns while praying is surely among the uncouth. Is that how you pronounce the word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One who sneezes during his prayer, for him it is a bad omen. And some say it is clear that he is repulsive. Also, one who spits during prayer, it is tantamount to spitting in the face of the king. Okay, well, that's some pretty heavy words. So in light of this, how could Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi have done all that while praying?
Whoever wrote that clearly was under the age of 50.
You want to hear something crazy? I was at an old age home, and we do the class in the TV room every week. I give a class, we do some prayers. And they took the door stoppers off of the doors to the room. So I asked the ladies what happened. They said the fire inspectors came and they said that it's a tripping hazard, so they had to take them all off in order to pass their inspection. In order to pass their inspection, they had to take them all off. Now, could you imagine a dining room with 100 people in it, most of them with walkers or wheelchairs, and there's no door stoppers holding the doors open? God forbid if there's a fire, what would happen?
Ridiculous.
They got to have someone on the board, whoever makes these rules. You can't make rules if you don't understand them. You can't have people who have never had a child to be on the school board, because you might have a lot of great ideas, but practically, if you understand children, you understand children, right? But what's the story? Let them eat cake?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's different.
Was that
If
Forest
you don't
Trace?
understand what someone's going through, sorry?
Was that Forest Trace?
It was not Forest Trace, no. I mean, it was in Sunrise, so hopefully Lauderhill Fire Commission is not yet that ridiculous. And I don't know what that, I don't know. It seemed to be ridiculous to me. Meaning, if one of these people would go around in a wheelchair or a walker for one day, they would probably have a little bit of a different, and it's not even like someone tripped and fell and sued. I don't think anybody's ever tripped on those door stoppers. Anyways, so yeah, Zalman, you're right. You cannot write something if you don't have any kind of connection to it. So the Gemara explains, granted, with regards to one who belches or yawns, it is not difficult. Here in the case where Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi did so, it was involuntary and therefore permissible. Here where it is considered uncouth is in a place where it is deliberate.
A yawn is not deliberate, it's involuntary.
However, the yawn is involuntary. Yeah, so if you voluntarily chose to yawn, so then that's not proper. But what would be voluntary? You know how kids sometimes want to show that they're bored, so they pretend to yawn, or they make a
oh, well, they're not doing the prayers. No, right, okay.
Okay, so belching or yawning, if it happens involuntarily and you try to stop it and it just comes, so then there's nothing you can do. However, the contradiction between sneezing, in the case of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi did so, and sneezing where it's considered a bad omen is difficult. The Gemara responds, the contradiction between sneezing in one case and sneezing in the other case is also not difficult. In the case of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, it is referred to sneezing from above, from his nose, and here where it is a bad omen is referring to sneezing from below, a flatulence. As Rav Zera said, that a sneeze from your nose is not a problem. In the school of Rav Manuna, I absorbed this matter in passing, and it is equal in significance to all the rest of my learning. One who sneezes in the midst of prayer, there's a good omen for him, just as the sneeze soothes his irritation, giving him pleasure down here. It is a sign that they are similarly giving him pleasure above. Since Rav Zera sneezed often, he was extremely pleased to hear this, that sneezing is a good omen, because sneezing feels good, and that means it's a message from God that things are going good, that he's smiling at you. I guess that was before they had, nowadays you would say take a, what is it, Prozac? No, not Prozac, wrong drug. For hay fever, allergies.
Whatever. But
There's
sometimes
a lot
they
of
say you
things.
sneeze.
Zantac? Zantac is a vaccine?
I don't know.
I think
But
Xan,
sometimes we
Anyway.
say
a lot of
now
things.
we sneeze on the truth. Did
We
you ever hear that
sneeze
expression?
on the truth, you said?
Yeah, have you heard that expression?
Now I did, but I haven't before.
He's young.
He's so young.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an old Jewish thing. You sneeze on the truth.
You sneeze on the truth.
When somebody says
Okay.
something and then you sneeze, it's like you sneezed on the truth. I don't know.
I've never heard that.
Doesn't make sense
Got
at
it.
all, but-
Okay. However, we still have a contradiction between spitting. The contradiction between spitting in the case where Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi did so when spitting where it is deemed tantamount to spitting in the face of the king is difficult. The Gemara replies, the contradiction between spitting in one case and spitting in the other case is also not difficult, as it is possible to resolve it in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. As Rabbi Yehuda said, one who was standing in prayer and saliva happened to accumulate in his mouth. He absorbs it in his garment. By the way, did you know why we don't eat nuts on Rosh Hashanah?
No.
One of the reasons we don't eat nuts on Rosh Hashanah is because when you eat nuts, it causes you to have more saliva than usual. And because the prayers in Rosh Hashanah are more than usual, we don't want to end up having to wipe our mouth the whole time or have spit and not know what to do with it. So therefore, we don't eat nuts on Rosh Hashanah. There's a few other foods as well. So if a person is standing in prayer and saliva happen to accumulate in his mouth, he absorbs it in his garment.
Yeah.
Now, if it was a fine garment and he does not want it to become solid, why? Your grandmother didn't have a handkerchief underneath her wristwatch?
Right.
So as a comedian, he was hilarious. He said, you're worried about COVID? He said, if you ever went to a family party and God bless you if you had some chocolate left on your face because grandma had that handkerchief, that 30-year-old, 30 with 30 years of snot on it, and she came over and she licked your face and she wiped it with that handkerchief. If you survived that, you don't have anything to be worried about COVID.
Who is this?
What was his name? I forget his name. It was
Modi?
hilarious. No, it wasn't Modi. It was some other guy.
There's two Jewish food.
He's a Jewish guy. He's a Jewish. His father is black and his mother is Jewish.
Oh,
And he was down here. I was covering the event as EMS. He was so funny. He's like, you know, the other thing says, yeah, besides that, if you ever made a phone call, from a payphone, right? And you pick that thing up to your ear and then you can't hear it. What do? You rub it on your shirt and then you put it back to your ear again. Or the magazines at the doctor's office that haven't changed in 25 years. That if you survive that, you don't have to worry about COVID.
What about
Okay. So, if it was a fine garment and he does not want it to become sullied, let's say I have a brand new pressed shirt, you may cover it up in your head covering. That way, one is permitted to spit. In other words, don't spit on the floor. That would be not proper. But you can spit into a garment. The Gemara relates. Ravina was standing behind Rav Ashi during prayer when saliva happened to accumulate in his mouth. So he discharged it behind him. He spat behind him. Rav Ashi said to him, and does the master not hold in accordance with that statement of Rav Yehuda who said that one absorbs it in his head covering? He said to him, I am delicate, and the mere knowledge that there is spittle in my head covering would disturb my prayer. This, I would not be able to handle spitting on my own clothes, and therefore I had to spit behind me.
Ay, ay, ay.
Why don't they just
The
swallow
person
it, for
behind
God's sake?
Sorry?
We're females. We don't understand this.
You swallow it. Then you have to spit.
Why wouldn't he swallow it? Maybe it was mucus. I don't know. Maybe it was. It's a good question. And today, thank God, we have tissues on the tables in shul.
Oh, good.
Wishing you all a very happy Hanukkah, and I hope to see you all on Friday night at 5 o'clock.
Rabbi, we're thinking of just
Yes.
coming to the 2 candle lightings because
Okay.
I can't sit more than a few minutes, and so
Okay, we have a couch. You can lay down. But it would be an honor. It would be an honor to see you, even if only for the candle lighting. 5 o'clock, God willing, and that'll be right here, 3800 Inverary Boulevard, Suite 109.
3,800.
Where is it, Rabbi?
I
What is
thought
it
it was
here?
300.
Yeah, what is it?
38. She says it's right across from the. Isn't it right across from the hotel that's there?
Right across from the hotel. Yeah.
3,800. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right
Suite
across
what?
from the hotel.
Suite 105?
Sorry? Suite 109, yeah, ground floor.
No.
109.
There's 2 buildings, so it's the first building, Suite 109. And we'll be there starting at 5 o'clock. Tomorrow, we're not having class as usual. We're not having the usual class. And next week, I don't think we're going to have a Tuesday class next week or a Wednesday class next week. And the following week, we'll be back on schedule.
Tell him to tell Nakama that, because we're supposed to call her.
Sure, he will tell me.
Well, make it sure he does.
What happened? The Chama sent the wrong address?
No.
Rabbi, I read your email. Could you tell Nakama about Joni and I that we won't be staying? We're just coming for the lighting of the candles.
We'll have food for you anyways. Don't worry.
What's that?
You can change your mind. You can always change your mind later if you'd like.
Yeah, Joni just can't sit. It's very hard
Right,
for her.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll tell Nechama that you guys will come for the candle lighting.
Okay, good.
Thank you,
Good,
thank
thanks
you.
a lot.
And to see the children.
Yeah, right.
Ah, yes. There we go. Most important part.
Yeah. And I can't
Okay.
wait till
Okay.
and I can't wait till Mendel holds these sessions.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Before you know it, he'll be filling in for me. Okay.
Okay.
Have a good week.
Take good care, everyone. Very happy Hanukkah. We'll see you all Friday night, God willing. And again, no class tomorrow, no class next week Tuesday, no class next week Wednesday. Following week, we should be back on track.
Okay.
Yeah, happy
Happy
Hanukkah.
Hanukkah to you and your
All right.
family.
And
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah.